Good morning, everyone. I want to start with a question, just an honest one. How much time did you spend last year improving your job, and how much time did you spend improving yourself? See, most people, they'll work hard for 8 hours, 10 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day for the company, for the boss, for the paycheck, and that's not wrong. Nothing wrong with working hard for your job. But here's what I learned a long time ago, and it changed everything for me. Your job will only pay you what it's worth. But you can be worth so much more than your job could ever pay you. Let me say that again, because it's important. The job gives you an income to make a living, but what you become, the skills you build, the discipline you develop, the mind you sharpen, that's what makes you a fortune. I used to think if I just worked harder at my job, things would get better. And they did a little. But it wasn't until I started working harder on myself, reading more, thinking more, disciplining myself more, that everything changed. See, here's the difference. A job can be taken away. A company can shut down. A boss can let you go. But what you build inside yourself, nobody, and I mean nobody, can take that away from you. So today I'm not here to talk about how to work harder at your job. I'm here to talk about something far more valuable, how to work harder on you. Let me talk to you about discipline. Not the kind of discipline your drill sergeant talks about, not the kind that makes you miserable. I'm talking about the discipline that sets you free. See, most people have it backwards. They think, if I just get a better job, a better boss, a better opportunity, then I'll get my life together. They're waiting for the outside to change so the inside can feel better. But I'm telling you today, and I learned this the hard way, it works the other way around. You don't get a better life by waiting for better circumstances. You get a better life by becoming a better person. And that begins with one word: discipline. Now, let me tell you a story. Early in my life, I was flat broke, not tight on cash broke. I mean, genuinely broke, embarrassed to answer the door broke. And I had a mentor at the time, a wealthy man named Mr. Showoff, and I'll never forget what he told me. He said, "Mr. Rohn, if you want to be wealthy and happy, you've got to learn a certain skill, and that skill is discipline." I said, "Well, I'm working hard already." And he said, "That's not what I mean. I'm not talking about working hard on your job. I'm talking about working hard on yourself. Because here's the truth, you'll never have more than what you've become. If you become more, you'll always attract more. But if you stay the same, no matter how many opportunities come your way, you'll always slip back to who you are." That hit me like a lightning bolt, because I realized my problem wasn't my job. My problem wasn't my income. My problem was me. I lacked the discipline to manage what I already had, to read what I needed to read, to think the thoughts that needed thinking, to say no to the things that were pulling me away from who I needed to become. Now, here's what discipline really means. It's not punishment. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without discipline, all your dreams, all your goals, all your ambitions, they just stay wishes. Wishes don't pay the bills. Wishes don't build a future. Only disciplined action does that. And here's the part most people miss. Discipline on the inside always shows up on the outside. Think about it. If a man cannot discipline himself to wake up early, how will he discipline himself to build a business? If a woman cannot discipline herself to read 30 minutes a day, how will she discipline herself to lead a company, raise a family, or build wealth? The outside is always a reflection of the inside. So before you try to master your work, master yourself. Before you try to fix your bank account, fix your habits. Before you try to build an empire, build your character, because your work will never rise higher than your self-discipline allows it to. Let me break this down into simple pieces, because Jim Rohn always liked to make things simple. There are, I believe, 3 levels of discipline you need to master. First, discipline of the mind. What you feed your mind, you become. If you feed your mind with complaints, negativity, gossip, and fear, don't be surprised when your life reflects exactly that. But if you discipline your mind to read good books, listen to wisdom, study success, and think positively, even when things are hard, you begin to shift your whole reality. I always say, don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Well, the same goes for your mind. Don't feed it easy thoughts. Feed it with challenge. Feed it with truth. Feed it with growth. That's discipline of the mind. Second, discipline of the body. Now, I'm not just talking about exercise, though that matters too. I'm talking about your daily habits. What time you wake up, what you eat, how you speak, how you carry yourself. Because here's the thing. If you can't discipline something as simple as your own morning routine, how do you expect to discipline something as complex as your career, your finances, or your relationships? Small disciplines, repeated every day, create massive success over time. Small indulgences, repeated every day, create massive failure over time. It's not the big things that determine your future, it's the small things, done consistently, that shape your destiny. Third, discipline of the spirit. This is the discipline of character. Doing the right thing, even when no one's watching. Staying honest when it would be easier to lie. Staying humble when you start to succeed. Staying kind when life gets hard. This is the deepest form of discipline because it's invisible, but it's also the most powerful because it's what people feel from you, even if they can't explain why. Now, why does all this matter more than your job? Because your job is an external structure. Someone else built it. Someone else owns it. Someone else can change it, downsize it, automate it, or take it away completely. But your discipline, that's internal. That belongs to you. Nobody can fire your discipline. Nobody can downsize your character. Nobody can automate your work ethic. I've seen people lose their jobs and rebuild empires within a few years because their discipline was intact. And I've seen people keep their jobs for 30 years and still end up with nothing because they never disciplined themselves to grow, to save, to learn, to change. So here's my challenge to you today. Stop trying to fix your job before you fix yourself. Stop blaming the company, the economy, the boss, the market. Start asking a harder question. What discipline am I missing that's keeping me stuck? Is it the discipline to wake up early, the discipline to read instead of scroll, the discipline to save instead of spend, the discipline to finish what you start? Whatever it is, start there. Because once you master discipline, everything else becomes easier. Your work improves, not because the job changed, but because you changed. Your income improves, Not because luck struck, but because your habits earned it. Your relationships improve, not because people changed, but because you brought a disciplined, mature, better version of yourself to the table. Remember this, discipline is not a punishment. Discipline is a form of self-respect. It says, I care enough about my future to control my present. It says, I won't let today's comfort steal tomorrow's success. So before you try to master your job, master yourself. Because in the end, it's not the job that makes the person. It's the person that makes the job worth having. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you learned something new? Not because a teacher forced you, not because your job required it, but because you wanted to grow. I want you to think about that for a second, because the answer to that question will tell you more about your future than your resume ever will. See, most people go to school, they get their education, they get their diploma, maybe a degree, and then what happens? They stop. They think, okay, I'm done learning. Now it's time to go work. And they spend the next 30, 40 years of their life coasting on what they learned in their 20s. And I'm telling you, that is the single biggest mistake most people make with their lives. I remember when I was young, I thought the same way. I thought school was where you learned and work was where you earned. I didn't understand that those two things were never meant to stop. My mentor, Mr. Showoff, sat me down one day and said something I've repeated for the rest of my life. He said, Mr. Rohn, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Now let that sink in for a moment. Formal education, that's valuable, don't be wrong. It teaches you to read, to write, to think, to reason. It gives you the tools. But formal education was never designed to make you wealthy or wise or fulfilled. It was designed to prepare you for a job. That's it. That's all it promises you, a living, but a fortune in wisdom, in character, in finances, in relationships, in life that only comes from what you choose to learn after the school bell stops ringing. That comes from self-education. That comes from the books you choose to read on your own time, the seminars you choose to attend, the mentors you choose to seek out, the mistakes you choose to learn from, instead of just suffering through. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you. School teaches you a subject. Life teaches you a lesson. And if you're smart, you don't wait for life to teach you the hard way. You go out and find those lessons for yourself ahead of time, through books, through mentors, through deliberate growth. Now let me tell you why this matters so much when it comes to your work. Most people think, if I want to make more money, I need a better job. But that's backwards thinking. The truth is, you don't get paid for the job you hold. You get paid for the value you bring to the job. And where does value come from? It comes from growth. It comes from skill. It comes from wisdom. It comes from becoming someone worth paying more. For think about it like this. If you want your income to grow, don't focus first on your income. Focus on your personal growth and let your income be the result of it. I've said this for years. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish your job paid more. Wish that you had grown enough to deserve more. That's a completely different mindset, and it changes everything. Now, here's where most people get stuck. They confuse activity with growth. They go to work every day. They stay busy. they check emails, they attend meetings, they finish tasks, and they think, I'm growing. But busyness is not growth. Repetition is not growth. Doing the same job the same way for 10 years isn't 10 years of growth. It's 1 year of experience, repeated 10 times. Growth requires something different. Growth requires intention. It requires you to say, I am going to deliberately, consciously put something new into my mind today that wasn't there yesterday. That might be a chapter of a book. That might be a podcast on your drive home instead of the radio. That might be a conversation with someone wiser than you, where you ask questions instead of doing all the talking. I always encourage people, read something every day, not for entertainment, but for growth. Even 15 minutes a day, done consistently, adds up to dozens of books a year. And those books, those ideas, they change the way you think. And the way you think changes the way you act. And the way you act determines the results you get in life. Let me give you a picture of this. Imagine two people start working the exact same job on the exact same day for the exact same pay. One of them decides, I've got my job, I've got my paycheck, I'm set. The other one decides, I've got my job, but I'm also going to invest in myself. I'm going to read, I'm going to learn new skills, I'm going to grow every single day. 5 years later, same job title maybe, same company maybe, but two completely different people. One has stayed exactly the same. The other has become someone far more valuable, far more capable, far more prepared for opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, a promotion, a business idea, a chance to lead, guess who's ready for it? That's the power of self-education. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for someone to teach you. It doesn't require a classroom or a certificate. All it requires is the decision to grow every single day, a little bit more than yesterday. And here's something important. Growth is not just about knowledge. It's about wisdom. Knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. You can have a head full of facts and still make foolish decisions if you haven't developed the wisdom to apply what you know. That wisdom only comes through reflection, through experience, through deliberately learning from both your successes and your failures. So here's my challenge to you. Stop treating your education like it ended the day you got your diploma. Your real education, the one that builds your fortune, not just your paycheck, starts the day you decide to take responsibility for your own growth. Write the book. Ask the question. Seek the mentor. Learn the skill nobody's paying you to learn yet. Because one day that unpaid learning will turn into your most valuable asset. Remember, formal education gets you a seat at the table, but self-education is what allows you to eventually own the table. So don't stop learning when the school stops teaching. That's exactly when your real education begins. I want to share something with you today that changed the entire direction of my life. It's a simple sentence, but don't let the simplicity fool you. Because inside this one sentence is a philosophy that separates the people who struggle their whole lives from the people who build something extraordinary. Here it is. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Now, I want you to really sit with that for a second, because most people live their whole lives doing the exact opposite. They wish the job paid more. They wish the boss was kinder. They wish the economy was better. They wish the traffic was lighter, the customers were nicer, the market was easier, the competition was weaker. They spend all their energy wishing the world would change to accommodate them. And I'm telling you, the world is not going to get easier. It never has, and it never will. Life is always going to have problems. Business is always going to have challenges. There will always be difficult people, difficult seasons, difficult circumstances. That's not going to change. So if the world isn't going to get easier, what has to change? You do. See, here's what I learned early in my life. You don't get paid for the time you put in. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And value isn't something you're born with. Value is something you build day by day, skill by skill, decision by decision. Let me explain this with a picture. Imagine two farmers side by side, working the exact same soil, under the exact same sun, with the exact same rainfall. One farmer complains about the weather, complains about the soil, complains about the market prices, and does nothing more than the bare minimum. The other farmer says, I can't control the rain, but I can control how deep I plant the seed. I can't control the market, but I can control the quality of what I grow. Same conditions. Two very different harvests. That's the difference value makes. Two people can have the exact same job, the exact same opportunities, the exact same starting point, and end up in two completely different places because one of them focused on becoming more valuable and the other one focused on wishing things were different. Now, here's something important I want you to understand. Value is not about effort. Value is about worth. You can work hard your whole life and still not increase your value if you're not intentional about it. Working hard at the wrong things, or working hard without growing, without sharpening your skills, without becoming someone more capable, that's just motion, not progress. I've met people who worked 60-hour weeks their entire lives and never got ahead, not because they didn't work hard, but because they never worked on becoming more valuable. They worked in their job, but never worked on themselves. So let me ask you a question that I think everybody needs to ask themselves honestly. Would I hire me at the price I'm asking to be paid? That's a tough question, but it's an honest one. Because the marketplace doesn't pay you for your need. It doesn't pay you for your bills, your dreams, your effort, or your time. The marketplace pays you for your value. And if you want to be paid more, promoted more, respected more, trusted with more, you don't start by asking for more. You start by becoming more. Now, let's talk about why this ties directly back to working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Your job has a ceiling. There's only so much a position can pay, only so much a title can offer, only so much a company is willing to give. But you don't have a ceiling. Your capacity to grow, to learn, to sharpen your skills, to build wisdom, to develop character, that has no limit. And here's the secret. When your personal value grows beyond what your current job can pay you, one of two things will happen. Either your current job will find a way to pay you more, or a better opportunity will come find you. That's not luck. That's not chance. That's the law of value. The market always searches for value wherever it exists. It cannot help itself. If you become valuable enough, opportunity has no choice but to notice you. So how do you actually build value? Let me break it down simply. First, become excellent at your craft. Whatever you do it better than most people are willing to do it. Excellence is rare, and rare things are valuable. Second, become someone people can depend on. Reliability is value. If people know that when you say something, it happens, that alone makes you more valuable than someone twice as talented but half as dependable. Third, become a solver, not a complainer. Anyone can point out a problem. Valuable people bring solutions. The moment you start walking into rooms with answers instead of complaints, your value multiplies. Fourth, become a lifelong learner. As I said before, growth is the engine of value. The moment you stop learning is the moment your value starts to decay, slowly, quietly, until one day you look up and realize the world moved on without you. Now, here's the hard truth I have to share with you. Most people want the results of value without doing the work of value. They want the promotion without the preparation. They want the bigger paycheck without becoming a bigger person. They want life to hand them an easier path instead of doing the work to become someone capable of walking the harder one. But listen, easy paths don't build strong people. Difficult seasons, hard lessons, disciplined growth, that's the soil where value is grown. So instead of praying for an easier life, pray for more strength, more wisdom, more skill. Instead of wishing for fewer problems, wish for a bigger capacity to solve them. Because here's the truth, plain and simple. Your income will rarely exceed your personal development. If you want more, you have to become more. If you want your life to change, you have to change first. The world will not soften itself for you, but you can sharpen yourself for the world. So here's my challenge to you today. Stop wishing your job were easier. Stop wishing your boss was different, your bills were smaller, your circumstances were kinder. Start asking a better question. What can I do today to become more valuable than I was yesterday? Because when you shift your focus from wishing things were easier to becoming someone better, that's when everything begins to change. Not the world around you, but you. And when you change, everything around you eventually has no choice but to change with you. I want to close with the most important idea of all, the one that ties everything else together. And it's this: your job is temporary, but your personal development is permanent. Now, I know that might sound uncomfortable to some of you. We like to think of our jobs as stable, as secure, as something we can count on. And I understand that feeling. I've had that job, that paycheck, that sense of this is where I belong. But let me tell you something I learned a long time ago, something that changed the way I looked at work forever. No job was ever built to last forever. But the person you become while working that job, that lasts a lifetime. Think about it. Companies close. Industries change. Technology replaces entire departments overnight. Bosses come and go. Positions get restructured. Markets shift. Even the most secure job you can imagine is still, at the end of the day, borrowed, not owned. You don't own your job. You're simply renting it for a season, but your development, your skills, your character, your wisdom, your discipline, your work ethic, the way you think, the way you solve problems, the way you treat people, nobody can repossess that. Nobody can lay that off. Nobody can restructure that out of existence. That belongs to you and only you for the rest of your life. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Where have you been investing the majority of your energy? Into something temporary or into something permanent? Most people, without even realizing it, pour almost everything they have into their job. Their time, their focus, their stress, their identity, all wrapped up in a position that could disappear tomorrow through no fault of their own. And when it does disappear, through downsizing, restructuring, or simply the industry moving on, they discover, often too late, that they invested everything into something that was never guaranteed to stay. I'm not telling you to stop caring about your job. Do your job well, that's important, that's character. But I am telling you, don't confuse where you work with who you are becoming. Your job is the classroom. It is not the diploma. What you're really there to collect isn't just a paycheck. It's the skills, the discipline, the relationships, the wisdom that will still be with you long after that job is gone. Let me tell you a story to make this real. I once knew a man who worked for the same company for almost 25 years. Loyal, hardworking, dependable, everything you'd want in an employee. And then one day the company was sold, restructured, and his position gone. Just like that. 25 years. And suddenly, no job. Now, here's the difference between two kinds of people in that exact situation. One person in that moment discovers they have nothing else, no other skills developed, no other relationships built, no other value beyond that one role, because they invested everything into the job and nothing into themselves. That's devastating. That's starting from zero at 50 years old. But the other kind of person, the one who took Mr. Shoaff's advice, the one who worked harder on himself than on his job, that person walks out of that same situation and says, well, I've been reading, I've been growing, I've built relationships, I've developed skills beyond this one role. I understand people, I understand leadership, I understand value. That person isn't starting from zero. That person is starting from everything they built inside themselves over 25 years. And now they simply need a new place to deploy it. Same circumstance, same industry, same layoff, two completely different outcomes. Because one invested in something temporary and the other invested in something permanent. This is why I say, treat your personal development like your most important investment portfolio. Just like you wouldn't put all your money into one risky stock, don't put all your value into one job, one company, one boss's opinion of you. Diversify by growing yourself in ways that go beyond any single position. Your communication skills, your leadership ability, your financial literacy, your relationships, your character, your health. These are investments that pay dividends no matter where you work, no matter what happens to the company, no matter what the market does. Now, here's something people forget. Investment requires patience. Nobody sees a return on the first day. If you plant a fruit tree today, you don't eat fruit tomorrow. It takes seasons, sometimes years, before the harvest comes. Personal development works the exact same way. The book you read today might not pay off for another 5 years. The discipline you build this month might not show its full value until a completely different chapter of your life. But it's building quietly in the background. Whether you see the results yet or not, that's the part most people give up on too soon. They read a few books, try to build a new habit for 2 weeks, don't see instant results, and quit, going right back to investing all their energy into the job instead. But those who stay patient, who keep investing in themselves month after month, year after year, they build something that eventually becomes unstoppable, not because they got lucky, because they compounded. And that's the real secret here. Personal development compounds. A little discipline today, plus a little more tomorrow, plus a little more the next day. It doesn't just add up, it multiplies. 5 years of consistent self-investment doesn't just make you 5 times better. It transforms you into a completely different person than the one who started. So let me bring this all together. The discipline, the growth, the value, and now the investment. Discipline is what makes you show up for your own development every day. Growth is what you gain by consistently learning beyond what your job requires. Value is what the marketplace recognizes and rewards when you become more capable, more skilled, more dependable. And investment is understanding that all of this, every book, every hard lesson, every disciplined habit, is being deposited into an account far more secure than any paycheck, the account of who you are becoming. Your job will change. Your title will change. Your company might not even exist in 10 years. But the person you build day after day through discipline, growth, and value, that person walks with you in every room, every opportunity, every new chapter of your life. So here's my final challenge to you today. Stop working only for your job. Start working on yourself every single day, as if your future depended on it, because it does. Because at the end of the day, the job was never the real prize. You were.